Hello Year 3, welcome back to our maths videos. Today our learning objective is, can I investigate and record equivalent fractions through Cuisenaire rods and bar models? Equivalent fractions, what does equivalent mean? Equivalent means equal. So we're going to investigate fractions that are equal. Before we start the lesson, I want you to make sure you have, which I had ready. Oh, there. So I want you to have strips of paper ready that are cut the same size. So if you have an A4 piece of paper or a piece of paper out of a book, if you cut strips of paper that are the same size, you can use them for today's lesson. Okay, so we're going to start off by talking about what we can see here. These are called Cuisenaire rods. So look carefully at these Cuisenaire rods. If the pink rod is worth 1 whole, which color rod is worth 1/4? So if this rod is worth 1 whole, which one of these rods represents 1/4 of this pink rod? Pause the video, have a think about the second question, and we'll discuss it together. Okay, so if you have a look, the pink rod is worth 1 whole. So would we need to look at any of these rods that are bigger than the pink rod? No, because 1/4 is going to be smaller than the 1 whole. So it's going to be one of these ones. Which one of these rods looks like it would be the same size as this rod divided into 4 smaller parts? Well, if we look here, one of these white rods represents 1/4, because if there were 4 of the white rods, it would be the same height as the pink rod. So the white rod, one of them represents 1/4. 2 of the white rods could represent 2/4. And if you look, 2 of the white rods are also the same size as the red rod. So both 2 of the white rods and the red rod could both represent 2/4. Okay, now we're going to pretend that another rod represents 1 whole. This time we're going to pretend that the brown rod represents 1 whole. How many different ways can you make 1/2? So in the previous slide, we found 2 ways of making 2/4, but only 1 way of making 1/4. How many ways can you think of to make 1/2 when the brown rod represents 1 whole? On your piece of paper, you could write down, for example, just the same as before, 2 whites could make 2/4. How many ways can you think of to make a half? Play the video when you're ready. Okay, so if we look over here, if the brown rod would represent 1 whole, half of it is represented by the pink rod because it comes to just halfway down the brown rod. Also, 2 of the red rods could also represent a half because they come up to the same place. Also, 4 white rods could also represent 1/2 because they also come up to the same place. If we were to write fractions about each of these, what would the fraction be? Pause the video and write fractions for each of the white, the red, and the pink rod. Okay, so here we can see that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts. So my denominator is 8. And 4 parts of it represented a half. So 4/8 represented a half. Here we have got 1, 2, 3, 4. and 2 of the parts were the same as 1/2. So 2/4, and here we've got 1, 2, so my denominator, oh gosh. So my denominator is 2, and 1 part represents a half. So 4/8 represented a half, 2/4 represented a half, and one half is a half. So these are what we call equivalent fractions, because they are all equal. Okay, activity 2. This rod, so let's read it first. The pink Cuisenaire rod is worth 1 whole. Which rod would be worth 1/4? Which rods would be worth 2/4? And which rods would be worth 1/2? You can make this Cuisenaire rod at home yourself with your strips of paper. You can half your strip of paper to make it into 2 equal parts, and then we need 4 equal parts. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you need to half it again, and when you open it up, you will have 4 equal parts. You will see the 4 parts where it's folded, and then you can either fold your Cuisenaire rod to show the different fractions, or you could label them, or you could shade them. Shading them is a good way. You could also have a go at shading them. Play the video when you finished activity 2. Okay, this time for activity 3, you need to cut. Let's go back for a second and talk about this activity, because you will need, let's talk about it for the next slide. So you would have had a go by yourself now. So you would have had this strip of paper. Which rod would be worth 1/4? Well, it's folded into 4 equal parts. So 1 part would represent 1/4. I'm just going to shade that and show you. So 1 part represents 1/4. Which rods would be worth 2/4? Well, this is 1/4. So 1/4, 2/4, we can also shade. Okay. Which rod would be worth 1/2? Well, if I was to fold my piece of paper into a half, what do you notice? I had previously shaded 2/4. When I look at half of my rod, I can see that it is the same as 2/4 because the same amount is shaded. So this is 1/4. These 2 parts up to here would be 2/4. Where is 1/2? Well, half is right here, which is the same as 2/4. So 2/4 and 1/2 are equal. They are equivalent fractions. 1/2 equals 2/4. Here you will need 2 more strips of paper that are the same size. You will fold the first strips into quarters, just like we did in the previous slide. Fold the second strip into 8ths, and this is how you can fold into 8ths. So to fold into quarters, you halve it, and then you halve it again. To get 8ths, you have to halve it 1 more time. So you halve it again, and then you halve it again. And then you open it up, and you will see that you have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts. You will need your 2 strips of paper, 1 folded into quarters, 1 folded into 8ths. Put the quarter strip on top of the 8th strip. So my quarter strip is on top of my eighth strip. And fold back 1/4. Fold back 1/4. How many eighths are the same as 1/4? Challenge. What other equivalent fractions can you find? Well, when they folded back 1/4, they saw how many eighths were showing? 1, 2, 2 eighths. So 1/4 is the same as 2 eighths. Okay, have a go at doing the challenge and play the video when you're ready. These are the rest of your independent activities. Have a go at doing them. Play the video again if you need to go over some of the tips, and upload your work on Tapestry for us to see. Well done, Year 3. Join me in the next video where we'll continue to learn about equivalent fractions. Bye.